Time. Time. What does it stand for? Time is my enemy, but time is also my best friend. Today, we'll talk about watches and our obsession for something that's beyond our control. Time. Let's go on a watch trip right here on The Rod Trip.
All right, good morning, guys. You got Rod Rodriguez here on The Rod Trip, and this morning we're gonna have a watch trip. So basically, it's just a nerd talk, a conversation about timepieces, sharing our passion for watches. And for those who don't know, I'm very passionate about a few things in life, watches and video games. But of course, when you start talking about watches, you can start to get serious and really go on a downward spiral of watch nerdness. All right,
It's a rabbit hole.
It is a rabbit hole. That's the term. So you got Rod Rodriguez and
Klein Yutanken.
yes, Klein. Can you share a little something about yourself? I mean, what got you to the watches world, the business of flipping watches at the same time, the love for horology and all that stuff?
You know, I just dove in head first with watches. I mean, I started out young when my parents gave me my first watch, but when I was back in grade school, I think I was like grade 5.
Okay.
So it was a Technomarine. It didn't really mean a lot back
That's
then.
a nice watch for a grade schooler.
Yeah, I think like,
I was in college, I didn't even have a Technomarine.
It came along with it, eh. Kasi parang I grew up in a family of jewelries. Parang I guess because I grew up surrounding.
Yes,
diba?
yes.
So I was
yes.
like, okay, it's like one of your inventory.
That's true.
So
Like
it's
let's say
give it to
your
me that
dad's
you
a
can
car
sell.
enthusiast, and he let you drive this car.
Exactly,
It's like
exactly.
okay, I've been seeing this car parked all
Exactly.
along. Right?
So I would say like no, but I was still grateful that they gave it to me, of course. But like kind of desensitized because all the watches were just around me every day.
Yes.
So back in grade, so how I started, and then my family was just into anything about jewelry, watches, fine jewelry, something, even luxury bags.
Yeah, your mom
So
is an institution already in the city. Is one of the OGs, one of the premier I guess dealer or reseller or however you wanna.
She's been doing it for
Right?
a while now.
Well,
Yeah,
and it's not
crazy.
just watches and jewelry. I think she sells bags too.
She does.
I mean, I am married. I do have a wife, and I did have girlfriends before. And every time we pass by Jeanette's, it's like, babe, I can't afford.
It's like a candy store for them.
Yeah, but it's like, but she offers layaway. She offers terms.
That's it.
Okay, all right, let's
Makes
go.
it enticing.
Yeah, so you grew up with that kind of an environment, whereas mine is sort of the opposite because I would just rarely see my dad.
Right.
So for you, I think it's both sides, right? Your dad's side and your mom's side.
both
kind of
sides.
have share the same interest. So my mom, on the other hand, this is directly from her as well. I remember bragging to her about acquiring a particularly nice watch, and she would be like, "What's the difference between that watch and like my watch?" And I'm like, "Ma, what's the difference between a Kia Pride and a Mercedes-Benz, right? They both serve the same purpose."
Exactly.
And she's like, "I don't get philosophy on me." Because I come from a family of lawyers, so we're always arguing and reasoning and whatever. I'm not a lawyer, I'm a broadcaster, but I would argue with my mom. And my mom she can't quite find the reasoning for it. Like what's the big deal with whatever. And you know what? This was already at the stage where I was sort of leveling up my watch game. But like you, started out as a kid, being given a watch by my dad, and it's this particular piece. Not this particular item, but this particular model.
Yes.
All right. And I owned it for about a week. This is a old school Casio digital watch with a very cool light function, all right? Which a lot of you people might be downplaying
That's
that.
the OG
but,
G-Shock,
Yeah, but your Rolexes can't do this,
No.
right?
No way.
Like Garmin watches.
Garmin's,
right?
yeah.
That's still a watch, right?
Yeah, computer watches.
But they're basically like they fall under the same category as maybe like an Apple Watch, right?
Yes.
Where they basically serve every purpose on the planet already on your wrist.
Yes.
And some people might justify, why not just buy that so you can have everything on your wrist? Yeah, but you know what? Let's say 20 years from now, that watch is probably not gonna be working anymore, and it's not something you can pass on to your grandchildren.
Iba talaga.
Iba,
Like when
diba?
it comes to mga computer watches or just what do you call that? Digital watches in general. They're just they're computers. They don't have they don't have a soul in them, and that's the mechanical watches. They're actually obsolete. almost had like a downfall back in 1969 when the quartz crisis hit. You know, it's supposed to be gone now. Mechanical watches, because quartz watches, digital watches, computer watches,
Yeah.
all those things that are powered by batteries.
Yes.
They're more accurate. They're
That's
more
why
reliable.
these things became popular.
Exactly, because it's
Calculator
just-
watches,
That's
right?
it. That's it.
you
They're
know,
just more reliable, but you know.
More
there is
accurate?
More accurate. That's it.
serve more. They have more
that's,
function.
That's the purpose of having a watch naman, di ba? For most people, it's just about telling the time.
Accuracy, yes.
But, you know, for people like us, it's in a different, you know, I think we're wired differently. Like
We're wired differently. We're wired differently. Like, we're like, if we were car collector guys, we'd be driving like an old school Roadster or something,
Yeah.
right? We wouldn't be driving
Yeah.
like a Lambo or
No, no,
I
it's
wouldn't be
just-
because I couldn't afford. But I mean, at the end of the day, you know what I'm saying? For me personally, it's like, you know, you have this watches that are handmade, hand assembled,
Exactly.
handcrafted at a little factory somewhere. It has a history. It might be mass produced already. I think Rolex just opened like a giant complex in there. But
That's
there's still a sense of scarcity with it
Yeah.
because they're not churning out as many as they can. In fact, I think that's what drives the value, the price.
Most of it, yeah.
Because they can't keep up with the demand. There's some people, you might have the money, but you might not be able to find
Yeah.
a particular piece for you.
You know-
So you mentioned mechanical watches. When did you start leveling up your watch game in terms of you being like immersed in, you know, not just the culture of watches, but the movement, all that stuff?
So the story was back in 2019, we got the sub. I'm not gonna say that I got it because it was my parents who paid. You know, it was like a thing. Like, parang, oh, there's a sub. Parang, we were in London, and then I just walked in a Rolex boutique in Harrods, and I just didn't expect anything because back in 2019, there was already this scarcity going on.
Yes,
Everything
yes.
was going over retail.
Yes. This was right before pandemic.
Just right before pandemic. So parang I didn't expect anything, and then, you know, like walked in casually with my brother, and I was just like, "Do you have a Submariner?" I don't think you have. I even started it out
Yes,
that way.
yes.
I already have that mental, you know, the yung parang expectation na wala silang available na stock because, you know, it's scarcity thing.
Yes.
But then the associate was like, wait, maybe I do. And I'm like, I got so excited, like my heart was beating faster, and like, okay. But I just like, you know, like I didn't want to seem too excited.
Yes,
you know, I
yes.
just had like that calm demeanor.
Yes.
And then parang, waited for a few minutes, and then the associate was like, step in this room. Like, oh my God, you know that feeling, that excitement.
Yes. Well,
it
you
was
know what?
driving me. Eh.
To be honest, I don't because
Yeah.
I got mine through a reseller.
The gray market.
I know they say it's a different experience
Yeah,
when
the
you get
white
it at
glove.
the AD,
Yeah, the
you
white
get the
glove
wine or
experience.
something, right?
Yeah,
you get to
no.
sit down.
Honestly, I didn't.
Because I mean, you could have acquired one if you wanted, right? You could have,
Oh.
I mean, from
From a gray market
from a
dealer.
gray market dealer, yeah.
So the same day that I got the Submariner was the same day I made Swiss Perpetual.
Really?
Yeah, you know how weird it was because parang,
Well, give us a background on Swiss Perpetual. It's a shop, right? It's a
Okay, yeah.
store you just opened.
Yeah, it's a
Maybe
store
we'll
that
show
I just opened in Manila.
clips or pictures of it while we edit this. You know.
Store I just recently opened in Manila. So Swiss Perpetual, you know, we buy, sell, trade in the secondary market. So we mostly do used watches. So what we
Mechanical,
do-
probably mostly
watches,
Swiss.
Yeah. Mechanical watches, mostly Swiss. Sometimes we do Grand Seikos. You know, we still
Okay.
love it. We still have that passion.
Yeah.
But like going back, Swiss Perpetual, how I just thought about it was really just, you know, I just want to make something, you know, like a page. You know,
Yeah.
just how to share my watches, or maybe in the future I would where I could market it. You know, like back in 2019, I didn't have resources. I mean, I had like knowledge a bit because my parents kind of had Rolexes also. So, but like not really into the technical
Yes, yeah.
side. Like I couldn't. You know, like it was just that parang spontaneity na, hey, let's make. I just told my brother, I was like, parang I want to make a page. Parang just like you know, just for anything that I
Yeah,
could
yeah.
post or probably try to sell. You know?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like Swiss made, Oyster Perpetual. And it was like Swiss Perpetual.
Yes. All right, we're still on the road trip, on our watch trip, of course, with Klein here, and picking up where we left off. So we just laid out, you know, our pieces on the table. Of course, I was talking about me being a hardcore paneristi, being a fan of the brand, and how it all began and what the sentimental value it has for me. Mainly because I've been following the brand online, right? So I was still in radio, and when you're a DJ and you're playing a song, you really have nothing left to do but just browse the internet.
Yeah, that's it.
So every 5-minute break I have from doing my ad libs, or how many minutes the song may take, I would be online and checking out Panerais, right? And I haven't seen one in the wild yet. I haven't been to the AD in Greenbelt at the time.
Okay.
So I don't know if it was already there at the time, but we're talking like way back, like mid to late 2000s. I wasn't married yet. I was still in radio. I was, obviously not part of the watch game yet. My watch then, I think, was an Oris Aquis.
Okay, you're part of the watch game. You have an Oris.
Already had an Oris Aquis. I
you're-
remember I got that. That was my next watch after the Chrono Tagoyer Formula One, right? So, so I had an Aquis, which is an automatic movement, and it was pretty legit. It was already nice at the time. And so obviously I was eyeing this.
You still drooled over you.
Yes, I was drooling over Panerai. And then there was temptation with knocking on my door when I saw U-Boat at Chimes.
Okay.
You remember
U-Boat
when
talaga.
Chimes
Back
had
then,
this
it was a
little
luxury.
booth for U-Boat?
Yeah.
And Tom Cruise was, I think, the guy, being promoting it. So, it had that look, but it was inspired by a canteen, I think. Right?
That's it.
Like it looks like a canteen
yung
bottle.
parang crown
Pang
guard
soldiers,
niya.
di ba?
Oo.
Yung crown guard niya, which is obviously PW Steel sort of, took after that. But there was something about a Panerai for me that just screams it's rugged, it's vintage looking, and the strap culture. Like you can change the look of your watch just by changing
That's
the
it.
strap.
You know?
And my first Panerai was actually a 112, which was manual wind.
The base.
Yeah, the base.
Talaga
Yeah, coming
ba?
from a quartz and automatic guy, so I'm like, this is an adjustment for me. That was my first manual wind.
Okay.
So people have to understand, the different types of watches. This watch actually is quite sentimental for me, not the actual watch, but the brand itself, because I remember I was living in my Lola's old house at the time. And so when that property was sold, I did buy my first Panerai.
Okay.
So it sort of is a reminder of my Lola's house. Right? Because,
see.
it's like
part of it.
the first thing that I got out of, selling that, because I co-inherited that property. So, that's what happened. So that's like, okay, I went from an Oris to like Panerai. That's a fairly big leap, right? I mean, not as big a leap as from Technomarine to Sub, right? Which was yours. So when I got into it, at first I thought it was just going to be a fad. I will outgrow the brand. I'm going to move on to the big Pilot. I'm going to move on to other watches. But I've stayed loyal, and I've owned other brands, and I've let go of those other brands. But I realized that it's the brand that sings to me.
That's it.
It's the one that I get excited about whenever I go to Greenbelt, or to like we go to Hong Kong and we pass by the watch shops. You see all these other watches, but the one that I really go straight first, there's something
Okay.
about the vibe it has. Like that big wooden box, everything about it. Like you're packaging it as a rugged yet sort of high-end wrist instrument.
Yeah.
What
You just said is exactly the same thing how I felt before. When I was growing up back in the 2000, early 2000, when I was like 10 years old. Kasi, my family was already into jewelry, diba? So
Yes.
I mentioned that we had like trips frequently to Hong Kong.
Yes.
So I would see yung mga shops
Yes.
for watches, for jewelry, for anything. But it was just Panerai that I was so drawn into. I remember a scene in my head. I was a kid. I was 10 years old, and there was this Panerai. There was this Panerai boutique, and then there was a watch displayed in the window, and I was like, I just stared at it. I was a kid. Like, what am I staring at? It's a watch, but like, that is a beautiful watch. It is a beautiful
It's
art.
in your face,
It
right?
was
It's
in your
big,
face.
right?
It's
It's one of
big.
the
Like,
pioneers
wow.
of the big watches.
So that's the thing. Like how I also got into that. Like right now, I told myself I just got this recently, actually, this year lang.
Oh, that's just this year.
This is this year lang.
So
But there's
is that your first Panerai?
This is not my first Panerai, but
Did your
this is
dad
the one?
Did you ever own a Panerai?
No. So this is the one that arguably that I think I would keep na forever.
Okay.
So
it's a beautiful, beautiful
Panerai
piece.
also has that same. I also had that same story
Right?
with yours. Na parang,
It excites you.
yeah, parang that when I was a kid, parang just looking at random things. Tapos Panerai was just something that I really stared at for a long time. And I just kept on remembering that scene in my head until today. Na parang when I'm into the watch game, parang Panerai, I remember it being that first luxury brand that associated in my head.
I remember my dad having a Longines watch for the longest time, and that's not even like on par with, you know, like an Omega or whatever. but I think the reason why is that it was fairly new to us. And with
Fairly new to
Rolex,
us.
we're so used to seeing like pawn shop
Everywhere.
Rolexes,
Exactly.
old Rolexes being worn by. So it wasn't really something that we felt like was unattainable because it was so common. And maybe there are a lot of fakes, you know, that we
Yep.
would see, and we would just assume that maybe that person is wearing a real thing. So it's not. But with Panerai, it's like, how many people did you know back then who was actually wearing one?
Yep. This is my wedding watch right now. Not right now. Yeah, so this is based.
it's always be, it'll always
It's
be a
always
wedding
gonna be my
watch.
wedding
Come
watch,
on,
yeah.
man.
I know.
So,
It's okay.
so I noticed there's no ring, right?
Huh?
So we're more of like
No,
watch
no.
guys.
But no, I have my ring here.
Okay, all right, all
So-
right. The one ring to rule them all.
I still have my ring, you know, but
Okay.
like I'm not so used to wearing it on my finger kasi. So yeah, the story about this one is actually
Reference number?
this is a reference 16014.
Okay.
The predecessor of the 16234. The very long production date is 36, but
Yes.
it looks the same with your modern dates right
This
now.
is a 36?
This is a 36 millimeter.
Is that the most like if you go back to, you know, the heydays of when Rolex was really popular and they came out, you know, as like the premier luxury brand of watches? They still are. I mean, was 36 the most popular? Or
was.
they jumped to 40? 36, right? Was
It
the
was
standard,
36,
right?
Yeah. Before when, you know, it was not the sports watches that were popular. It was actually these
Yes.
Daychas, the day
Yes.
dates, the presidentials.
Yes,
diba?
yes.
So back then, you know, the smaller sizes were actually the in thing. You know,
Yes.
the trendy watch.
The ladies were like 26s, right?
28,
28s,
26,
right?
or
Yeah.
26 actually.
Right, yeah.
26,
Really
24
small.
to 26.
Really
pretty
small.
So men were wearing mid-sized watches, 31, 34, 36, and this is probably the biggest one amongst the catalog back in
Yes.
1980s. And yeah, this watch is particularly my wedding watch. How I chose this one is because of this is a beautiful dial. This dial is actually nicknamed as the Buckley dial.
Okay.
So the guy behind this was John Buckley. He's a very well-known watch guy in New York right now that has he has a store. He's the one that just collected these dials and
Okay.
parang just hoarded them and stored them away. Parang, like right
Okay.
now it's nicknamed after him.
Okay.
So yeah, I just really like the dial.
Is
And
it a rare, hard to
I
find?
would say it's not as rare. It's not
Okay.
as rare, but it's not like your typical. It's not produced anymore. It doesn't
Yes.
have, the Roman date just right now doesn't have this
Did you
kind
have
of.
this like restored or service, whatever, in any way?
Ano
It
lang,
looks
overhaul
crispy.
lang. Yeah.
It looks crispy, man.
It's
I
over-
mean, it's so clean. It's
Yeah, I got the bezel recut.
okay.
So
all right.
the bezel, this is white gold there, so it's hard to really refinish it. So I have a guy in London who, parang works in a service center. So
Yes.
parang he was able to refinish the bezel. But that's about it. Everything else is original.
Was
The
it in great
bracelet-
shape already when you got it?
It was already in the
Okay,
shape.
all right.
So not as much stretch. Yeah,
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
I just got this. I didn't really think about what to associate it, but it was really just because it's nice, like aesthetically. But sakto, parang my wedding was coming up, and I was like thinking na parang, I'll just wear it on my wedding. I put it on a leather strap.
So
which
was
not-
that the one on the video, like
It was on
the
video.
same day edit?
Yeah,
So that's the one they
same day edit.
feature
It was
with
the
your
one that
shoes and
featured,
your.
yeah.
All right.
Right, it would just look nice. Eh.
Nice.
I didn't want to wear my
timeless.
Submariner.
It's
Exactly.
timeless.
I didn't want to wear my Submariner. I didn't want to
Yeah.
wear my Seiko.
Yes.
And what else did I have that? But yeah, but it's nice. The
I mean,
classic dress watch
out of
piece,
the
eh.
ones you brought, I would either wear it with that or this. But I guess for classic purposes, it's definitely
Yun.
that.
So
Diba?
parang yeah, I just needed something, to like, a smaller watch in my collection also, a 36.
Nice.
Actually, it's not small. It's just.
And
it's just right.
your wife has like
And my wife, I got her an Oyster Perpetual 31, which on a whim that we got, na parang like just a few weeks, like 2 months before our wedding. We were just lucky na parang we just walked in a Rolex boutique. That was, we found an Oyster Perpetual.
Oh, wow.
And it was like, and Oyster Perpetuals were hard to find
Yes,
already
yes,
back
yes,
then.
yes.
It was last year.
Yes.
So, yun, parang, so we both used those watches in our wedding. So, I mean, at first, we didn't really associate it with our wedding, but since we used them, and yun, naging wedding watch na namin.
Nice, nice. Okay, so what's the story with this one, bro? I mean, this one's connected to the wife. This one's connected to?
This one is connected to my son's birth. So, February 25,
Same
day.
birthday as my son.
Same day as
Diego
Sir
Rai,
Rod.
named after this watch.
It's just 3 years after, you know?
Yes.
It's interesting. I got this parang a month prior.
Wow.
A month prior.
Safe,
And parang
safe to say that's a pretty hefty investment.
It was.
Right.
So parang, I don't know, I was just so drawn into it. Parang, I didn't get how I felt when I was thinking of purchasing this. But I was so drawn into it. Before this, I actually had the 5066.
Oh, okay.
So this is the reference 5065. This is in
Okay.
a 38 millimeter. The 5066 is the 36
Okay.
variation.
Okay.
So that was too small for me.
Yes.
It was in the inventory. I
Yes.
just sold it. Tapos after I sold it, I kept on going back in my head. I need that design. I need that
Yes.
Aquanaut for some reason. Parang I never liked the Aquanaut. The first time I saw an Aquanaut in the catalog, ang pangit.
Yeah.
Patek, I've always associated it with, classy, dressy pieces.
Yes.
Or probably the sportiest is the Nautilus.
Yes.
Pero this one, I don't know, it's just parang the ugly duckling.
Yes. Yes.
So yeah, going back, this Aquanaut, regardless of the value, I knew it was too expensive. It was, I don't know, it was more than how much I could afford. I swear, it's, and then parang,
It's like suntok sa buwan type
oh,
of thing,
suntok
right?
sa buwan talaga. But I just had to do it. For some reason, I don't know, like just something in my head, just go for it, just do it,
Yes.
okay?
Yes.
Contacted my guy in the States, can you get this for me?
And we did.
2 weeks after it arrived, and I was like, oh my God.
I'm a Panerai dude. This
Yes.
is like, it can't be any more far from what that is, right? Because I just try to, like it's dainty, that's the word, right?
dainty.
You're using. I was using flimsy, but it's
Yeah.
not because it's a quality, the craftsmanship's crazy. It's
Yes.
not flimsy. Flimsy's different.
Yeah.
It's more, I guess, I wouldn't say fragile either, but it's definitely not, you can't treat it or handle it the way you handle this.
It's fine.
It's fine.
It's
a fine
it's a fine timepiece.
It's a fine timepiece,
You know?
and considering it's on a rubber strap, it has the not the typical the locking clasp of the.
So,
but it's
the
beautiful.
thing with this one is the Aquanaut. They introduced it for the people who couldn't afford the Nautilus.
Yes.
So it was that entry-level Patek sports
Yes,
watch.
yes.
This is arguably the cheapest Patek.
Yes.
But like, even with the cheapest Patek,
Is it still with the demand now? And
no.
It's
Like
no longer.
market price,
No longer.
market price aside, but this was retailing back in 2000. It was retailed back. It was retailing for 300,000.
Wow.
Yeah. It was retailing for 300.
And now
That was big money before.
and now you give if you got 10 of those back then.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, 20 years
right, for
later
the
on.
price of one now, basically, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's crazy. That's crazy.
It's crazy.
Or six of
Yeah.
those, 6 or 7 of those, right?
So that's the thing. Even with the Patek, the cheapest Patek, it's still housing, like very fine,
It is. It still has it. The pedigree's
has
there.
the pedigree's there.
The whatever
The
identify
finishing, the quality.
finishing, everything. And for those who are always commenting, I hear from people, friends, and I don't want to say casuals because that makes it sound like a watch snob. But there are those who will always say, "Oh, I can't tell one from the other. I can't tell the fake from the real thing." The reason why you can't tell the fake from the real thing is you've never had the real thing on your wrist. Like Rolexes, you've never held one.
You've never
The
worn.
weight is different, the feel is different, the look is different, the finishing is different. And there are even like videos of fakes now. Let's just like dive into that for a little bit.
It's
you know,
crazy.
just to let people know and discourage them from taking that route. I'd rather own a low-end, legit watch brand that's not fake
Of course.
than high-end, but
I mean, kasi what you're buying into these watches, the luxury watches in general, it's really the heritage, the quality, how much the brands have invested so much time and effort and money into just making these timepieces, diba?
You're paying for their
So,
reputation.
You're paying for the reputation, their standing in the market, like how they're reliable they are.
These are watches worn by royalty.
Exactly.
I mean, when in your lifetime will you become a king or queen? But if you can afford, you get to a stage in your life where you can afford to purchase the finer things in life, then that's the next best thing, is to at least have a commonality with them, have something similar with what they've experienced, right? And since you love timepieces, you love watches, you are nerding over it, it's your passion, that's where, your interests lie, then I guess it's not a bad place to invest in. It's not a bad place to immerse yourself in, right? All right, so for the would-be watch geeks out there, we're either inspiring people or hopefully we're not discouraging people to be a part of the watch world. I mean, personally, I get a lot of questions about watches from friends of mine who are interested, but haven't really fully immersed themselves into it. They would ask, what's the first good watch brand to buy? What are some watch tips to know that you're sourcing your watch from a legit seller or whatever? And there's always this term that's very popular in the watch community, buy the seller.
Buy the seller.
Buy the seller, right?
Of course.
Especially if you're not buying from the AD, right?
Yes.
It's buy the seller. And so credibility, trust, those things, they mean a lot because, there are a lot of fakes out there. There are a lot of people out there.
The industry we're in, it's really revolving around trust. Trust is it's the currency. And that's what's interesting, and that's why I've also made this business, because moving forward, it's not really about making money. I mean, yes, it is, but it's the secondary part. The primary thing for me is really to share the enthusiasm, to share the passion, and also to learn more new things.
Yes, to meet people with the same interests, like us.
To meet people with the same interests, because that's what drives me. Parang yan, just meeting right now, just talking like this.
It's a secret handshake.
It's a secret
they say,
handshake,
right?
that's it.
It's a secret handshake.
Bro.
I look at you, you look at me, but my side eye's looking at
Parang,
your watch.
that's it.
Your side eye's looking at the right.
I know.
Right?
I know what you're into.
And immediately okay, this guy.
You get a connection.
There's a certain level it's a language that's spoken by watch guys.
Yes.
That needs not be said.
That's
your
it.
your wrist will say a lot about you.
Yes.
Right? Like I mentioned earlier when we were talking off record, I said, I read somewhere that a man's watch, says a lot about where he's been, where he is presently, and where he is headed. Right? Like if you look at your watches, these are phases and stages in your life.
That is.
If you look at my watches, I mean, I didn't hold on to the earlier ones. I mean, if I had the Tag Heuer Formula 1, if I had the Oris,
No,
if
it's
I had
the same for me.
You see the progression.
You see the progression. I wish I could. I kept them, but yeah,
Right?
the same sentiments. Like this is where you're at right now.
Yes.
This is the part of wearing your watch. It reminds you of a story of
Yes.
like how you got that watch, the moment in your life, diba? And that's precious.
It's not necessarily about the most expensive thing. Like personally, like I've had a watch more expensive than this, but I keep going back to this.
Because you have a connection.
Exactly. I looked at your spread and I looked at your watches. I'm like, my eye is staring at this, but you talk most about this one.
It's a Mariner.
Right? I mean, of course, this holds a special place in your heart because you were wearing that when your son was born.
Yes.
But the story you told with the Submariner, right? For
holds a
you, the
different-
excitement, going in the authorized dealer and like calling your dad and like convincing him to, that for me, I think that's what it's about. That's what it's about. It's like, I don't want to compare it to like past relationships or anything because it's not necessarily about you never forget your first. Not really. It's more of like you have to go through certain certain timepieces to find out which one
You're connected with
fits
the most.
you the best.
Yeah.
Right? It's kind of like a car. You start out with your parents' hand-me-down. Then you buy your.
Still have mine.
Right. Then you go with your Civic and dress it up and kit it
Yeah.
out and all that. And then you start to become more practical, become a parent, you get an SUV because you're thinking a bigger family, right? It's kind of like how watches are. It's an evolution of who you are, and it's the best thing about it is it's an investment that is very mobile, like what we talked about.
Oh, for sure.
You can carry it around. You can't carry around your house. You can't carry around your car, right? You can't carry around your bills of money if you are that wealthy. It's functional, and like I said, it represents you in many ways. The value, the style, right? Like I'm a rugged guy. I wear a rugged watch, and he's wearing. Well, you're basically. If I look at your collection, you are a versatile dude.
Yeah, I have my moments.
If you could pick one that best represents you, just out of these ones that you're wearing,
I think it would be the sub.
it would be the sub.
I think, the sub is the most plain, boring.
Because you're macho but classy, right?
No, but you could say it
It's
that
solid,
way.
right?
It's solid.
It's solid.
And, the sub, it's a Rolex, but it's actually a boring watch. But, it's dressy, it's sporty, it's in between, diba?
Yes.
But watch collecting, it has a lot of languages, You can do just in an enthusiastic point of view, investment point of view. There's a lot of ways on how to do it. So,
How do they get in touch with you, man? I mean, if somebody wants to up their game, maybe wants to learn a thing or two, or just wants to hook up with a watch nerd like yourself.
hit me up with my personal account, dude. I just anytime. If you have any questions about watches, I'm your guy.
Where's the shop in Manila?
for sure.
Swiss Perpetual. Where is it? Where's it located?
Yeah,
Because I go there often to see my dad. So
Recently opened a shop in San Juan.
okay.
So yeah, it's a major milestone for me to really just to open up shop. It's just to bring people in.
That's everyone's dream.
Yeah.
To have a business that's connected to your passion.
For me, yes, I'm an enthusiast, but I also started Swiss Perpetual because I want to experience more watches. I can't deny the fact that these watches are expensive. So for me to attain these watches, I gotta earn them. So that's
And you
how
can
we
get
do
your
it.
hands on those when people come in and want to trade in or show you their
Dude,
piece. You're like,
very-
okay,
whoa, this is new.
Like me, like I'm holding those pieces for except for the sub, but I'm holding them for the
And
first
that is
time.
the feeling that we're after.
Yes.
It's like these watches are like the drugs that we never did.
Yes, yes.
And that's quoted by John Mayer himself when during the
Yes,
Talking Watches
yes.
with Hodinkee.
Yes.
So-
He also said some people just have the tick, and he has
Yeah,
the tick. And
that's
apparently
it.
we have it.
Yes,
Right?
exactly.
So, all right, well, thanks, man.
Thank you, man.
Thanks for joining me. Thanks
Yo, it's an
for
honor. It's an honor.
sharing a portion of your collection. I mean, like I said, it could be it could be all Seikos or whatever. It doesn't matter. If it's what sings to you,
Come on, we want to get into. We're into watches. If you're into some other watches that we don't have here, we want to talk about.
we have that same common passion for watches. So this has been an episode of The Rod Trip, and this has been The Watch Trip with Klein, of course. Thanks, Mr. Klein Yutankin, my first guest, and this is definitely not going to be the last of our collab. All right. So again, hit him up. He's on Facebook, and also check out our group, Davao Watch Group, Davao Watch Club.
Watch Club.
I didn't even know
Yeah.
that.
Oh yeah, let's promote that.
Yes,
Let's
the
promote
Davao
that.
Watch
Hopefully we can
Club.
have like a get together.
Let's
soon,
have a
you know?
get together, hopefully, and we would love to do a feature on that as well. So thank you, and again, don't judge a man by his watch.
No.
Judge him by his personality that is represented by his watch.
Yes, sir.
We out.